This month's episode of Transit Unplugged TV takes us to Palm Beach County, Florida. Known for its warm weather, great beaches, and exquisite mansions, the county seat is in the city of West Palm Beach, where I met leaders of the local transit system Tran, including CEO Clinton Forbes and Director of Operations Chad Hockman, who discussed their operations and new innovations. At the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, I spoke with Interim Executive Director Valerie Neilson. Plus, we introduced a fun new segment of the program called How Do I Get There?, where I use a local public transit or mobility mode to travel to a restaurant or important locale. And I visited the West Palm Beach station of America's only privately owned high-speed rail line, Brightline Trains, and speak with its president, Patrick Goddard. Patrick Goddard, President of Brightline Trains. Great to be with you here in your West Palm Beach awesome station, man.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be here. Thanks for visiting us.
Absolutely. Well, we are on a tour of Florida, talking about some of the best public transit and mobility options. And of course, we can't do it without talking to Brightline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's great to introduce people to this. A lot of people have an image in their mind of what train travel is like in America, and it's typically not this.
Tell us some about Brightline Trains and your role there.
Absolutely, delighted. So Brightline Trains is the first privately owned intercity passenger rail in the United States in over 100 years. The last guy to do this was Henry Flagler on these very tracks at the end of the 19th century. And we're in the process of really looking at corridors around the country, but we're starting right here in Florida. Florida is a very interesting market for high-speed rail. You've got a population of about 20 million people. About half of those people live along our tracks. And there's about 400 million trips between South Florida and Central Florida every year. That's a lot of trips, there's a lot of congestion, and we're looking to provide another mode of transportation for people that's more eco-friendly, faster, safer, more efficient. You can be more productive. So we're really excited to be introducing this service into Florida.
Tell us about how fast these trains go. They're considered kind of higher speed rail, maybe not full high speed.
So we travel at a top speed of 125 miles an hour. And we travel as, you know, I think our lowest speed through the corridor is about 79 miles an hour through some of the more congested or more densely populated areas. So you're talking about a 3-hour travel time from Miami to Orlando, and that includes several stops picking people up in South Florida on the way.
How did the pandemic affect the rollout of service here?
You know, when we shut down in March of 2020, we had already learned a lot from the 14 or 15 months that we had been open. So we took that time to apply those learnings. We built bars in our stations. Nobody wants to sit down and have a beer at a cafe. So we created bars, we created autonomous markets. We improved our safety protocols as it relates to safety and hygiene. We were already way ahead of everybody else, I think, in that regard. But we took that time to make improvements. The biggest improvement we made and the biggest realization we had while we were operating was a train trip is really the intermediate part of somebody's journey. So we recognized that if we really wanted to give people a car-free or car-optional lifestyle, we needed to be able to get them from where they were to where they needed to get to, not just from train station to train station. So we introduced a service called Brightline Plus, which Brightline Plus is a door-to-door service that's powered by a fleet of eco-friendly vehicles, accessible through our app. So you can actually book from where you are to where you need to go, all in one trip, all one transaction, all one price. We'll take you to the station, you'll get on the train, you'll get off the train, you'll get into one of our vehicles, and we'll take you where you need to go. So that was one of the biggest innovations that we developed and implemented, and when we reopened in November, we launched that right when we launched, and it's been phenomenal. About 30-40% of people use Brightline Plus to get to and from the station.
And what's the current status of the train service out in California between Vegas and LA?
That's right. So here in Florida, you know, we're very focused on finishing our construction up to Orlando, which will be complete by the end of this year. So we'll be opening that service in the early part of 2023. We're also adding additional stations in South Florida, in Boca and Aventura, which are really two locations equidistant to our existing stations of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach. So that's the focus right now. We're also working on developing an expansion of that system from the Orlando airport, which is our terminus in Orlando, all the way out to Tampa with a stop in Disney. So that's the work that we're doing in Florida. Out west, there's a corridor that's been studied for over a decade. It was called Desert Express. It's now called Brightline West. Brightline West takes people from LA to Vegas. Another incredible market for intercity high-speed rail. There's about 55 million trips between LA and Vegas annually, and it all travels along I-15, where there's as little as 4 lanes. In some areas, you can experience pretty horrendous congestion. That's a 4 to 5 hour drive. We'll be taking people from LA to Vegas in about 90 minutes. So we're very excited about that. That is in the design development stage, permitting stage. We are optimistic that we're ready to put a shovel in the ground on that sometime later this year.
Tell us about the current state of rail safety.
So safety is our top priority at Brightline. Anybody who's in the transportation business has to be focused on safety. What I can tell you is we rebuilt this entire railroad, all the grade crossings, the infrastructure. We'll have invested up to about $5 billion by the time we're finished with this system. So a really meaningful investment, and we actually exceed the FRA standards for safety. But, safety is a community effort. It's not just about the railroad. Incidents on railroads don't necessarily occur because the railroad is unsafe or the equipment is unsafe. It's typically people who circumvent the safety equipment that we've put in place and put their own lives in danger. So trespassing, driving around grade crossings, those types of things. So we think about that in the same way as we think about any problem that we face here at Brightline. And we've brought a lot of innovation to the table, including cameras with AI, use of drones, fencing, landscaping, signage, ambassadors at corridors. We have a significant education campaign. We work with municipalities on enforcement. It really does take a village, and it takes a lot of effort to keep the community safe from this infrastructure asset. But in spite of that, traveling by train is the safest way for people to travel. And people have this misperception that train travel, may not be safe. Train travel is very safe. What you experience is the community not behaving in a responsible way around the railroad, and that's what we're always working to improve on.
Does Brightline Trains connect in with local transit?
Yeah, so Paul, as you know, transportation is an ecosystem. We view ourselves as the spine that connects all of the major cities throughout the state of Florida. But then again, we have to interface with the communities in which we operate to ensure that we can feed our system and we can distribute people from our system. So that's something that we're always focused on with both the public sector and the private sector. So a great example, I think, of an intermodal hub is our train station in Miami. So in Miami, we connect with Tri-Rail, Metro Rail, and the Metro Mover, which collectively carry about 30 million people a year around the Miami area. We're also connected with bus systems here in West Palm Beach and in Fort Lauderdale. And then we work with all the private providers. So in addition to Brightline Plus, which is our own offering, we've got all these public transportation opportunities. We've got scooter charging stations. We've got partnerships with rideshare folks. So as I said, it's about an ecosystem that enables this car-free lifestyle. And I think the public sector is our experience here in Florida has been, since we've announced our stations and started running our service, everyone's starting to understand the utility of an infrastructure asset like this and how they can connect to it. So we're working with all the airports, with the ports, and with those transit agencies to have better integration, not just from a physical logistics perspective, but also from a technology perspective. So it's not enough to just connect things physically and have pickup spots. You also need to connect it from a digital perspective and give people the ability to plan, pay for, and travel, with an easy transaction. So really our app is starting to evolve into more of a mobility as a service application, where you're able to plan your entire journey. Right now we're just incorporating Brightline Plus, but as we evolve, we're working, for example, with Metro Rail in Miami to be able to use your Brightline QR code to access Metro Rail, right? So these are things that are going to enable a car optional or a car-free lifestyle.
What are the plans for the future of Brightline Trains?
The United States is about 50 years behind Europe and Asia in the context of high-speed rail, which is a travesty. The good news is there's a lot of corridors throughout the country that I think are suitable for high-speed rail, many of which have existing infrastructure or existing transportation corridors that can be built upon. We think there's anywhere between 6 and 10 major corridors that connect cities that are too far to drive, too short to fly. throughout the United States and Canada. So, we're focused on Florida right now. LA to Vegas is next, but we're evaluating additional corridors. We'd love to have a half dozen of these things or so over the next decade, connecting cities in the way that we're going to connect Miami to Orlando.
Patrick Goddard, President of Brightline Trains, thank you so much for being our guest today on Transit Unplugged TV.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Next, we visit the local Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, and its Interim Executive Director, Valerie Neilson, who tells us about the role of the agency and how it interacts with local transit. Valerie Neilson, Interim Executive Director of the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, thanks so much for inviting us in today to talk to you about what's happening in this region of Florida.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for stopping by.
Valerie, tell us about the Palm Beach TPA.
Sure. The Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, or the TPA, is the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for Palm Beach County. We collaboratively plan, prioritize, and fund the transportation system with state and federal dollars, looking at where are we going to prioritize funds over the next 5 years, and how are we going to grow over the next 25 years to achieve our vision of a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system.
How do you interact with the local transit providers?
We work very closely with our transit providers to identify how we can improve the transit system today and in the future. Today, looking out over the next 5 years if we can prioritize access to transit improvements such as pedestrian and bicycle facilities, as well as efficiency improvements such as level boarding, better transit stations, transit single priority, and electric buses.
What is the TPA planning for the future?
I mentioned that we have a long-range transportation plan that looks out over the next 25 years of how we're going to grow and what are our transportation needs and desires. As part of that plan, we've identified a network of multimodal corridors that we want to evaluate for enhanced transit service as well as improved pedestrian and bicycle facilities. We call that plan the 561 plan because it includes 5 north-south corridors, 6 east-west corridors, and 1 connected system that captures 94% of all non-farm jobs in the future, as well as 68% of all the population in the future in our county. We want to work with our local municipalities and our transit agencies, as well as roadway owners, to identify what the best alternative is for each of these corridors, as well as what are the local mobility visions and first last mile connections that could tie into this corridor as we work collaboratively towards achieving this vision.
Valerie, thanks so much for having us in today to talk about how your agency, the TPA, really pulls it all together here in Palm Beach County.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you stopping by.
Had a great interview, Val. Thank you so much. Now we're done. We're going to go to lunch. How do I get there?
Well, we're in a very walkable downtown with lots of options. We can walk, we can take a trolley. Soon there's going to be bike share, but actually I recommend we take Circuit, a local circulator that's on demand, funded by the downtown, and Brightline also has local circulators. So you just download the app, and then you just say where your pickup address is, how many people are going to be riding in it, and then you order it, and it's on demand, and then it'll take you within a certain zone in downtown and actually over to the beach as well.
All right, let's try it.
All right.
Once I arrived at the restaurant, I spoke with Rafael Clemente, who tells us about their local mobility options.
My name is Rafael Clemente. I'm the Executive Director of the West Palm Beach Downtown Development Authority, and we're a special district that serves downtown West Palm Beach.
And you run some transportation here, right? You have your own little transit service?
We do. In fact, in the year 2000, we started the trolley service in downtown West Palm Beach as a free service, a free transit service, and it's been in operation since. Has evolved over the years and continuing to evolve. But recently we started a partnership with a small electric shuttle vehicle service called Circuit, and it has been an absolute smash hit. It significantly exceeded our expectations, and it's done so by encouraging people to use it not just for leisure trips, to come downtown and dine and shop, etc., but actually moving workforce.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, we're using it coming to lunch here. It's a great it's electric, it's clean, it's awesome.
Sure. So you saw it yourself.
Yeah.
It's so convenient, and as you know, I'm sure you know, doing what you do, convenient, safe, and easy is the way to get people out of their cars. And that was our goal with this, and we couldn't be more pleased.
Excellent. Over lunch, Valerie shares with us how she got interested in transportation planning and the important role it plays in communities. Tell me a little bit about, your background, why you're interested in this kind of stuff, planning and transportation. What caught your interest in all that?
Sure. So I've always been very interested in public health and health in the built environment.
Okay.
So as an undergrad, I studied geography and environmental studies, and then I got into urban planning and how our cities are built, how people get to the places they need to go. And then I fell into transportation planning, which I love because really transportation is at the center and the heart of it all. It's where people it affects people's quality of life. It affects your access to opportunity, to jobs, education, healthcare, where you want to live, work, and play. And being able to create walkable, transit-oriented cities that people may or may not have the option to own a car. So providing a car optional future that you don't have to own a car to be able to get to jobs or to get to opportunities, that you actually can live in a walkable, bikeable environment, that you can take transit to where you need to go, and you don't need to have that extra burden of the expense of a car.
Yeah. I like here in Palm Beach how you've got a nice mix of public and private. So I was talking to the guys at Brightline, and they're bringing in bike share, and they've got last mile solutions. You've got Clinton's group at Palm Tran, which is giving the fixed route and some micro transit. I mean, you really probably could live here car free if you wanted to, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely in the urban area, in the very urban cores, like where we're at right now in West Palm Beach, you can take Tri-Rail, Palm Tran throughout the county, and Tri-Rail and Brightline throughout the region and beyond, because Brightline's going to be going to Orlando soon. So really here in downtown West Palm Beach is a very walkable city with lots of options. Bike share coming soon in the next couple of weeks with Brightline, and that's a partnership with the city, local circulators, trolleys, circuit, really just, it has it all.
Now we head to Palm Tran and its Intermodal Transit Center, where I speak with Clinton Forbes, Executive Director of the agency, on board one of their great 40-foot buses, where he tells me about how they integrate with commuter rail and work closely with the TPA and some of their great new innovations in microtransit and ferry. So, Clinton Forbes,
yes,
CEO of Palm Tran here. This county's amazing. I've really loved being here a couple times over the last year. Tell us about the location we're at right here. This is pretty cool.
Well, we're actually in West Palm Beach. We also are in Paradise.
That's right.
That's what we call Palm Beach
there
County
you go.
Paradise. But we're in West Palm Beach, and this is our intermodal center.
Okay.
This is one of our largest bus hubs here in West Palm Beach, and we have about 10 to 12 buses that traverse this area every day. It is a multi-modal center where we also have Tri-Rail and Greyhound that connect here.
That's great. And what do you have going right now that's exciting here at Palm Tran? You got some new exciting developments you were telling me about a few minutes ago.
Well, on this site, one of the things that's going to be exciting for the future is that this will be a major transit-oriented development, TOD. And so we're looking forward to that. But more recently, we implemented our smart card, which we call Paradise Pass.
Paradise Pass.
The Paradise Pass.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and so the Paradise Pass, you know, one thing in transit, as you know, Paul, you are a longtime professional with a lot of experience in transit. And, you know, one of the impediments of using transit is that major inconvenience of what do I do to pay my fare?
Right.
And I've always thought that it should be as simple as you can pay with anything on your person. And so that's the system we actually designed and implemented here in Palm Tran.
Okay.
We worked with GenFare, and it is a state-of-the-art fare collection system where you can pay with anything on your person.
Really?
If you have cash, if you have a smart card, if you have a mobile phone, if you have a wearable, if you have a credit card, you can pay your fare.
Wow.
And so we try to remove...
What about a gold tooth?
A gold tooth?
I can't. Your fare isn't that much here anyway,
right.
is it? What's your fare? What's your
Our
fare?
fare is $2 one way, $2 a trip.
I won't need that.
And so it's pretty reasonable fare.
Yeah.
And so it's been going very well. The adoption, we implemented the project in November of last year, 2021. Okay. And, you know, of course, it was a little challenging.
So like wearable, like a watch.
Like a watch, a wearable. You can, your iWatch.
Stored value on it.
Yes, just like you go and pay for your latte at Starbucks.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing here.
That's awesome.
With your transit trip. But the surprising thing to me is that the adoption rate has just been amazing. And not from the smart card, which is a contactless card, similar to a credit card with a chip.
Right.
But from the mobile app. There are more mobile users than there are smart card users. So the adoption rate now, a couple months in, we have about 11,000 people using the system with the new technology. 8,000 of those people are actually using the mobile phone.
Wow, that tells you something, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. People want to manage their life by their phone.
Yes.
Everything else is on there. Yeah.
We have to make it super convenient. One of the things that I'm doing, you know, I always think that this crisis that we're starting to come out of, this pandemic, I think that crisis breeds innovation, and the transit has really, the transit industry has really capitalized on that. And one of the things I'm doing, you know, one of the big hits, and kind of COVID has elevated this technology, the QR codes. I mean, QR codes have been around forever, but you know, when COVID hit, you get your menu with the QR code. You get everything with QR codes. So all of my bus stops, I'm putting a big QR code.
Really?
That gives you real-time information for that bus stop. It gives you the schedule, and it's at your fingertips or your mobile phone.
So you can just go up with your phone, snap it, and it takes you to the schedule.
Simple.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and so we're trying to do some innovative things here in Palm Beach County for our customers.
What about microtransit? Last time I was here in March, you had started a microtransit pilot, I think. Are you still got that going?
The microtransit pilot is just, I mean, it's through the roof. It's going so well.
Oh, good.
It is a model that I think not only in Palm Beach, but our industry, we have to begin to adopt after COVID because it's really more personalized transit. And people are kind of looking for that, I think, after this crisis that we just went through. So it's a service that we provide in a rural part of Palm Beach County. It's called the Glades community.
Okay.
A community of 3 cities that are almost really like on an island to itself. And wow, I mean, our productivity rate is markedly higher than when we first started. It's the only mode, and we have 3. We have fixed route, paratransit, and mobility on demand, microtransit. It's the only mode that actually experienced an increase through, during, and after COVID.
Wow.
And so it is something that we are looking at implementing in other parts of our community.
Clinton, on this episode, we're talking to Patrick Goddard, who is president of Brightline Trains, and also Valerie Neilson, who's head of the local Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm very impressed how transit integrates here. Integration is a big key around the world for effective public transportation. Tell me how that's working here.
Well, you know, we really enjoy a great partnership with Valerie Neilson, the head of the Transportation Planning Agency, and Mr. Goddard of Brightline. You know, transportation, you know, we really, it's a partnership. And so when our customers use Brightline, when they use Uber and Lyft, and they use other modes of public transit, it's very likely they're going to use public transit, a bus. And so we really encourage and partner with them quite often to really make sure that our mutual customers understand that we're kind of in this together, and we want to make that trip as seamless as possible for them through our modes.
That's awesome. Thank you. Chad Hockman, an old pal of mine, is the director of operations for Palm Tran, and in this interview, he tells me about the day-to-day functioning of this important transit system and how they're growing. Chad Hockman, director of operations here at Palm Tran. We're here at your multimodal facility. This place is awesome.
Thanks, Paul. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we're old pals, of course. We've known each other many years, worked together a long time ago. Now you're here in Palm Beach County. Really paradise.
Yeah.
What are you doing here as director of operations?
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's beautiful down here. We love the weather's beautiful, and we got a great service here. Our fixed route service runs 32 routes, 334 drivers. We have our Palm Tran Connection service, which really serves our ADA and transportation disadvantaged community. And that's one of our largest ones. That's 300 vehicles. And
300 vehicles on paratransit?
300 vehicles on paratransit, yeah.
And do you outsource that?
We do outsource that. We use MV and First Transit. They're our current contract providers.
Okay, and then you have another service?
We do have another service. We run out in our Glades community, we run a service called Go Glades, and it is a mobility on demand service that we just launched. We just changed during the pandemic, actually. It was a deviated fixed with 8 vehicles, and we launched it to a mobility on demand, strictly dial a ride.
And you operate that yourself?
We actually, MV operates that.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do all the scheduling and dispatching for it and routing. So, and it's been one of the biggest successes we've had. During the pandemic, it was the only service that actually had ridership growth.
Wow.
So it was.
So you're going like into transit desert, so to speak, where you don't have fixed route work?
We do have fixed route. We have one fixed route that runs out there, but it's a rural community. And it was really underserved.
I gotcha.
And we had 2 routes, and when we did our route performance maximization, we went down to 1. And then we supplanted it with a deviated fix, which just didn't meet the needs of the community. They couldn't, you know, there's no taxis out there, there's no TNCs. So this really provided them with an opportunity to be able to access the Glades community.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's 3 cities. It's Pahokee, Belglade, and South Bay. So it really does do very well.
Yeah. What do you got coming up in the near future?
So in the near future, we've got we're currently out to bid on our paratransit service. So we're looking at some non-dedicated service. We're looking to add in a rider's choice program for paratransit and transportation disadvantage.
Okay.
And then we're looking to streamline some of our fixed routes in terms of a first mile, last mile. So that's on the horizon too. You know, bigger plans as we look at the ridership and regaining some of our COVID ridership, right?
Yes.
And trying to figure out how to best serve them.
This is a really big county, right?
Really big county.
Yeah.
Really big county.
That's something. But you all work along with your other counties nearby, right? Into like a larger metropolitan area?
Right. We partner with Miami-Dade and Broward as a regional kind of area down here.
One thing I love about this intermodal station we're at here is how you have your buses coming right in, interacting with the Tri-Rail, which is kind of your regional rail, commuter rail service, right?
Absolutely, and it's one of our bigger partnerships, you know, we have here in South Florida. And we have 5 stations in Palm Beach County in which we run buses through. So
to their
trains,
okay.
Trains, yeah.
And they take you to Miami, and
they take you down to Broward and to Miami. It dead ends at the MDT Miami-Dade Airport.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you have a lot of people transferring between the two?
We do have a lot of people transferring between the two. So you can take the bus to the train and the train to the plane.
Hey, that's good. There's a movie called that, I think.
There is.
Right. Thanks, Chad. Great
Thanks,
interview.
Paul. It's great seeing you.
As you can see, one of the reasons Palm Beach County, Florida has the lifestyle of living in paradise is that you can live, work, and play there, relying on a combination of local transit, fun mobility options like the microtransit circulator shuttle, and connect up easily with intercity rail to travel to other cities like Miami. Public transit is a backbone of any community, and in Palm Beach, it's run by real professionals who work well together to create a mobility mosaic for their community.